Good afternoon, Samir.
Good afternoon, Benjamin. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you with us in the studio. But let's take a look at sickle cell. Growing up, we had a lot of things on our minds. We're looking at when sickle cell is mentioned, you just want to think about that child who is isolated in the class, who doesn't sweep. When we are going to pick up the desks, he doesn't pick. When it's time to do the sweep and cleaning, we just think they are just giving undue treatment. What really is sickle cell?
Well, sickle cell is a disease of the red blood cells, and it affects a lot of patients in different ways. But the most common way is for patients to be unable to perform activities that other normal people will be able to. So like you mentioned, sweeping, cleaning, and the rest. Those are activities that some sickle cell patients are unable to perform. And I had a lot of that growing up because I wasn't able to do a lot of things that my mates were able to do. So I wasn't able to play a lot. And during break time in school, I'll be sitting a lot. And it was lonely. It was lonely. And part of you feels you feel bad because there's so much that other people can do, especially sweeping, cooking, and other stuff, and you're not able to do that. So you feel left out and incapable.
Yeah. What really is the situation? Is it as bad as a lot of us assume it?
It is bad, yeah. It is bad. It's so bad that Nigeria has the highest number of sickle cell patients in the world.
I think it's an African thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. This is why there is need for awareness and genotype testing, especially before marriage, because so many people suffer from the disease and they don't even know. So many people are carriers and they don't even know, and they marry out of ignorance.
Yeah, I wanted to go to the cause of it. I know that a lot of people talk about genotype. I actually have a friend who is about getting married, and they told him that you are AS and the woman you want to marry is SS. And he says, look, he said what he said in Hausa, and he said, you know, it means that even the person with sickle cell could outlive you who you think that, but is it a risk worth taking? He may be listening. I mean, you won't talk to him.
For me, it's not. I wouldn't take that risk. But that's because of my own personal experiences. I know what I went through with the disease, and I know what my sister went through with the disease, and it was a lot. And I know what my father went through, because when he married my mom, they didn't know about genotype testing and all that stuff. It was after having 2 sickle cell daughters. That's when they went to get a comprehensive checkup, and they realized that we have sickle cell anemia. My dad still lives with that guilt, even though I'm okay now. He still lives with that guilt.
Tell us, what was your experience like?
Well, it started with hospitalizations every month, and I had to be getting blood every month. So there were the usual crises. Sometimes they will last for 2 days, sometimes 4 weeks. But basically every month I was in the hospital. So I had a lot of missed school days, but it wasn't so bad till I turned 15. And I had this terrible crisis, and everything just changed. And it took us years before we realized that the disease was starting to cause complications in my body. And that's one of the complications of sickle cell anemia. You might not have frequent crises, but it definitely affects some parts of your body and your organs. For some people, they get a stroke. Others get leg or hand ulcers. I got bone diseases. So I was in the hospital for so many months, and at some point I stopped walking. I was on a wheelchair for 7 years.
7 years?
Yeah, and at least 10 doctors told me I wouldn't walk again, and I wouldn't leave. So it took a lot of trying to find doctors that had the answer or knew about a cure or had a way to basically save my life.
Yeah, your story is a very touching one. 7 years hospitalization, quite traumatic.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to imagine what it was for you.
There were some parts of it when I was home, but yeah, the whole 7 years, it was just about one thing, fighting for my life and for my health.
Thank God you're alive and strong. And you were able to write a book about it.
Yes.
Tell us about your book.
The book is amazing. I started it as a diary when I was going through the journey. I didn't know it would turn into a book. And then eventually I realized that every time I told people about my story, they would tell me, oh my God, you should write a book. It's so inspiring. People love to hear it. So in the end, years later, I took out those diaries, started reading them again, and then I started compiling them. And before I knew it, I had a story about how my illness started, how I lost myself, how I realized who I was, and how I fought for my life, the things and lessons I have learned, and who I am today, and what I want to do for the rest of my life, which is basically dedicating my life to helping other sickle cell patients. So the book, S is for Survival, is a story of strength, courage, hope, survival, and trials. Because every one of us, we all have different trials we're facing. But one thing I'm sure people will be able to relate is that you can always find the will and the strength to fight and to win.
Yeah, your book, I'm beginning to think of writing a book about your book. but what really is it a fiction, or is it a novel, or is it like a textbook about how to survive or something?
No, it's an autobiography. I wrote it about myself and about everything I went through.
Really strong. I'm sure we'll be able to hear more about the book. Is it coming out anytime soon?
Yes, it's going to be released on Friday. This Friday, 2nd May.
Where?
In Pinel Apartments, here in Abuja.
Okay, I'm sure you want to join in the discussions. You've been listening to this very touching story. I'm touched myself, and there may be questions about your feelings, but it's generally looking at these issues coming in from one who has survived. And the title of our book is S is for Survival. Looking at how you won't believe, beyond that voice, behind that voice is one person who's really strong. I'm seeing strength in this woman, and I'm really encouraged. But for all of you who may have questions for her, or you can call us to do line 0709-8504, 07037475076. The other line 08031230293 or 08031230924. Our smart number is 0700A Nigeria Info, and then on WhatsApp is 0809-9930137, and to send an SMS into the studio, send to 32351. ABJ first with your name and location. We have one caller hoping to ask a question. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Benjamin. This is Gerald speaking.
Okay, Gerald, go ahead.
Yeah,